This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. It's pretty clear that everything that just went down in Texas is yet another direct energy weapon. And I'm going to play for you a video exclusively from the website at callforanuprising.com. If you're not aware, I have a website at callforanuprising.com. It's $2.99 a month. It is ad-free. It is troll-free. The reason that it's a $2.99 fee isn't just to maintain the website. There's a lot of reasons that there's a fee for the site, including the fact that I am able to hold thousands of videos over there, all of my videos that have been removed from platforms like this one, as well as my podcasts and the forum where people are uploading lots of great information, interacting with each other. You could also live chat, and you could also direct message other members on the website, talk about any topics that interest you in regards to the topic at hand, which is really the end times that are appearing in front of us day in and day out. So the website's at callforanuprising.com. I also have to have a fee on the site to keep trolls out of the site, because as you could tell from the amount of channels I've had, I have people that stalk and follow my channels everywhere I go. They like to talk about censoring channels, but they can't seem to just turn off my channels. They seem to need to follow me everywhere because they can't get enough of me. And then they, of course, report the channels over and over again. So callforanuprising.com. Check it out if you haven't yet. And if you want to do me a favor, since I'm putting this video up here on YouTube for you to see, please subscribe to my backup channel, Nations Conspire. I'm going to be doing my daily content every single day over on that channel. I'm trying to build it out. Please don't hesitate to subscribe to it. If you haven't yet, do it now. Because trust me, if you're not aware, these channels are going at a monumental pace. And the only reason this channel is still up is they haven't detected it yet. And I can only leave these videos up for a few hours each time I put them up. So I recommend you watch the videos when they come up here, but at the very least, make sure, most importantly, you subscribe to my backup channel. It is linked below. Pause the video, do it now, look around, find the link, Nations Conspire, search for it yourself. Here is the video on Joe Biden from the website actually mentioning how certain homes with certain roofs were managed to not get burned by this wildfire, but what he's really saying is certain homes with certain roofs were not subjected to the direct energy weapon attack on Texas. And I'll go into detail on the website as well and other videos about the livestock that were obliterated down in Texas. Again, this is about controlling the food chain. This is more than just building smart cities. It's a lot deeper than that. They're strategically picking these places that they're lighting on fire. And it's absolutely frightening. So here's the video from the website. Make sure you sub to my other channel now. Enjoy.
YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show, exclusively here on a callforanuprising.com. With everything going on in Texas, with everything that civilians are starting to realize about the governments of the world, Chile, America, we're seeing all over the place the government's using direct energy weapons on civilians. More and more people, thanks to social media, are able to see this because people are filming footage, and it doesn't look like what the government's trying to tell us in the mainstream media. Thus, people are getting suspicious of what's actually going on. And with everything in Texas, it's very clear, based on how far and how fast this fire has gone, that a direct energy weapon was once again used. Now, the other evidence that I've talked about is obviously the destruction of livestock, knowing that they want to kill off the food supply as much as they possibly can and pollute as much water that is, of course, used for cities and large populations, contaminate that water so that all of these people become either dead fried from these direct energy weapons, upended out of their home, forced into FEMA camps, or, of course, end up having to beg the government for food and water. And then the government could stick some nanotechnology inside of their bodies. But Joe Biden, if you haven't heard this yet, you have to listen to this clip, because one of the things that we talked about, the direct energy weapon in Maui and in Chile was that there was a lot of buildings, a lot of things that were left standing that were the color blue. Specifically, homes that had blue roofs on it. You might remember Oprah. A lot of these celebrities were spotted with blue homes that stood out like a sore thumb, that didn't look very eye appealing, and you wouldn't think that people would be getting blue roofs put on. But there's a theory beyond that with the direct energy weapon that I'll get into after the fact. But Joe Biden, listen to this clip where he says if you fly over these areas that are burned to the ground in Texas, you'll see in the midst of 20 homes that are just totally destroyed, one home sitting there because they have the right roof on it. Because they have the right roof on it, they didn't burn to the ground like the other homes. Listen to this.
Because if you fly over these areas that are burned to the ground, you'll see in the midst of 20 homes that are just totally destroyed, one home sitting there because they had the right roof on it. And anyway, because if you fly over these areas that are burned to the ground, you'll see in the midst of 20 homes that are just totally destroyed, one home sitting there because they had the right roof on it. And anyway.
So I don't know what people are thinking when they hear that. Like when they're hearing, oh, did you know you could buy a house that can't catch fire? Wouldn't everybody have a house that couldn't catch fire, that was 0% flammable? I mean, a lot of these direct energy weapon hits, by the way, that they tell us are forest fires, there certainly are a lot of trees that are left untouched. There's a lot of trees that aren't completely burned to ashes, yet the homes are, and the cars are completely melted, right? And of course, some people are trying to spin this with the right roof on it, and meaning something about, oh, environmentally friendly roof or blah, blah, blah. He is literally referencing a direct energy weapon. Now, if you don't know the theory or the understanding of direct energy weapons and how they can specifically avoid certain colors with this laser tech, I'll show you the clip that I used a little while back when I was covering the Maui situation. And again, I just put up a bunch of my Maui videos if you're new to all this, or if you weren't around when Maui hit, that are up here on the website. All you have to do is go into the search tab, type in Maui, or look at more recent video uploads. They'll all be dumped in there. But here's a clip of laser weapon technology and how it can be programmed for different wavelengths. Thus, it could avoid certain specific colors like the color blue.
Laser weapons can be programmed for different wavelengths. There was something blue they didn't want to burn.
Blue car did not burn in flames. Same as the blue umbrella.
Operation Blue Roof and the FEMA Self-Help Program, while similar, use two different materials. Both programs help reduce further rain damage to homes and provide temporary protection for the roofs of residential structures damaged during severe weather. The sheeting for Operation Blue Roof are installed by a contractor, overseen by the Corps of Engineers according to certain specifications. The material is a rolled polyurethane sheeting with fiber reinforcement. It's 10 millimeters thick and measures 20 feet by 100 feet. It's used for major impacts to roofs. The sheeting is 100% waterproof. It is also tear resistant, UV resistant, and fire retardant. The FEMA self-help tarps are installed by the homeowner. The material is thinner and not as resilient as the plastic sheeting. It typically measures 20 feet by 25 feet with grommets to allow for a tie-down solution. These blue tarps are used for minor roof repairs and are more of a patch solution. To sign up for the program, you can call 888-ROOF-BLUE. You can go to blueroof.us, or you can go to one of our many sign-up locations.
So when a lot of people saw all these houses standing in Maui, these weird umbrellas that were eerily just sitting there, blue cars that didn't get burned, people started realizing that this potentially could be a direct energy laser weapon, where the government, of course, as they do, they tell celebrities, they tell Freemasons, all members of their secret cabal, who's in the know, to make sure that they have, oh, you paint your roof blue because we're going to do this here. You might want to make sure you don't die in a fire or your home doesn't get burned to the ground. And after that event, and after the one that just occurred in Chile, a lot of people started painting their roofs blue. We even talked about back then when this occurred in Maui in the summer, the FEMA blue tarp theory, where they were encouraging people to blue tarp their homes. But one of the things I want to show you here is something in regards to this, because a lot of people don't understand direct energy weapons, and I'm not going to act like an expert on it. I know a lot of you here on the website are military veterans or have military training. I do not, so I'm not going to sit here and act like I know more than anybody else about this stuff. But in my research on direct energy weapons, I wanted to play this clip because I thought it was really helpful. So people not only understand direct energy weapons, but understand how they can shield themselves from direct energy weapons. Now, I'm not positive that if you just throw a blue tarp on your roof, you're going to be, free from getting a direct energy weapon. I mean, some of the theories are that, the laser color of the blue, the wavelength would be preventable, but at the same time, the government can change the color to what wavelength they want to hit and what ones they don't want to hit. So in other words, you paint your house blue, they can change the wavelength of the direct energy weapon to a different frequency, and then they could wipe out, if you have red roof, houses with red roofs could stand and remain unfazed. So at least that's my understanding and everything that I've studied on it. So I want to show you this clip from, and this is, something that, it's on the Naval Postgraduate School website. There's a video here where they're talking about broadband metamaterial shielding for counter-directed energy weapons. So first, he talks a little bit about high-power microwaves and direct energy weapons, and then he goes into how metamaterials can be used to absorb the laser, to absorb the frequency. Thus, if you had a roof that was made of this material, you would likely be able to prevent your home from being burned via a direct energy weapon. So here's the clip.
So then here's the overview. So I'll kind of do a little introductory stuff up front to give everyone a frame of reference, but then most of the focus here will be on the parameter extraction and equivalent medium parameter retrieval for the metamaterials, which will hopefully help us streamline our kind of design of metamaterials. But then most of the focus here will be on the parameter extraction and equivalent medium parameter retrieval for the metamaterials, which will hopefully help us streamline our kind of design of metamaterials. And then last will be on future work and basically all the stuff I'm going to pawn off on Lieutenant Ed Wolf. So high-power microwave weapons, the weapons themselves kind of went beyond the scope and classification level of my thesis. However, I just wanted to introduce them real fast so that everyone kind of knows what the threat is and what it is we're designing metamaterials to shield against. So high-power microwave weapon is basically a weapon that uses a very high gain microwave source at a very high peak power over a very short dwell time. And the idea is that it's trying to induce a very large electric field at a target so that you produce some overload in their circuitry and disable their electronics. And so depending on your target, the effects can be variable. If you're talking about a vehicle, like a ground vehicle, you might merely stop it or shut it down. And then if you're talking about something that flies like a missile or an aircraft, the goal would be to knock out something like their flight control system so that it goes plummeting to the ground. So kind of ranging from soft kill to hard kill, depending on what you're trying to do. And then a lot of nations around the world are researching these weapons because they have a lot of advantages relative to other directed energy weapons like lasers or particle beams. The first one is because you're doing high peak powers over short dwells, you get a relatively low energy waveform. So while these high power microwave weapons can still have pretty big size and weight, their power and cooling requirements can be lower compared to other systems, in particular like the particle beams. The other nice thing about them is that they're highly adaptable to your target set. When you're talking about lasers, you tend to get one frequency to use, and if the enemy figures out a way to either reflect or disperse that frequency, then your laser becomes a lot less effective. But with microwaves, if you happen to know that your target set, if your enemy uses missiles with seekers in the X-band or drones with communications in the K-band, you can build a high-power microwave system that specifically attacks that bandwidth, and then it's very hard to defend against. And then the last big advantage, you just heard from Donnie about how atmospheric turbulence affects lasers, and then particle beams are also almost impossible to get through an atmosphere. Microwaves don't have that problem. They propagate readily through the atmosphere, which is why we use them for sensing and communication and all that stuff. So this chart just kind of shows where these high-power microwave weapons live relative to more traditional systems like radars or jammers. And so your ideal high-power microwave weapon would be in this bottom right corner here, where you're talking about something on the order of gigawatts of peak power being produced by less than a kilowatt of average power. And then this down here is just a picture of a typical high-power microwave weapon system that someone was working on somewhere in the world sometime in the last decade. And so you have the big high-gain microwave dish on top, then presumably all the transmitters, signal processors, cooling, all that is hidden in the truck bed. So then our candidate shielding for stopping these microwave weapons is our microwave absorbent metamaterials. And so first advantage of the metamaterials is that they can have a very high levels of absorption, and they're very tunable to the frequency you want to absorb. So here's a sample metamaterial structure, very similar to the terahertz metamaterials, just scaled up in size. So you have conductive metal squares that are periodically, also that we call unit cells, that are patterned over this dielectric spacer, and then that in turn is mounted on a metal ground plane. And so then you can choose the frequency that you absorb based on the width of the squares and the index of refraction of the dielectric medium. Now, in terms of protection, what really gives you the protection against microwaves specifically is having this conductive ground plane, because microwaves don't want to transmit across a ground plane. So you could say in theory that you don't have to go for an absorbent design, you could just coat everything in conductive material. However, we're going for an absorbent solution because if you clad everything in conductive material, you're going to light up like a Christmas tree on all those microwave radars. So in the interest of preserving all these signature reduction platforms we've invested in, we want an absorbent design. The other advantage, which I'll talk about more during future work, is that once you have this absorption and these tuned frequencies, you can actually also use your shielding for sensing as well, once you incorporate the right electronics into the design. So your shielding can give you not only protection, but situational awareness as well. So this here is a very simple single band design. The idea then would be to try to get a broadband or multi-band design where you can actually laminate multiple resonator squares on top of each other, all separated by dielectric, which is kind of what we have down here. So here's a simulated mock-up of a kind of pyramid structure. This particular design that I tested had 6 resonator layers, so it can absorb 6 frequencies. Here's just a SEM micrograph kind of showing the edge of the unit cell. See, it's a little fuzzy, but you got the metal plates in there, all separated and mounted in dielectric with a ground plane at the bottom. So this design, there's some plates going around. So this is basically the unit cell of that array plate that's being passed around. And then this is just some crude experimental data with a crude model. But all I want to point out here is that with our 6 layers, we can see that we have 6 very predictable absorption peaks that we can tune towards.
Okay, so what's interesting to note is that obviously, you know, we don't think very often about shields, right? So people are like, well, I can paint my roof blue, and maybe in some cases that could work. Metamaterials might be a smart way to go. Now, when you research, that's where it gets funny, right? Because when you research metamaterials, because I'm sure some of you are like, what's a metamaterial? The metaverse, you know? It's actually graphene, nanoparticles, dielectric material. So, you know, it's pretty interesting what they could do with that. And as you saw in the clip, they were talking about stacking these into a laminate provides broadband absorption. So it would pretty much absorb the frequency that was aimed at it. Now, I'm covering this so that you have an idea of this because a lot of people out there, it's trending. People are talking about it, and they're kind of just going, well, if your roof is blue, you won't catch fire. Well, that's not necessarily true, is it? I mean, nothing really came out of Texas that showed it. So I wanted to at least talk about what Biden meant when he said this about the roofs. Okay, he wasn't talking about the climate, which is what liberals were saying. He wasn't specifically saying that every house in Texas that had a blue roof was left standing. But it's clear to me that he's talking about these homes or certain homes that have their roofs or their houses actually built from these types of materials that can absorb the frequencies were safe and protected. I think it was a fraudulent slip. I think he slipped the tongue there when he was talking about it, which he quite often does. Now, a lot of it's obviously an act, but we don't even know if this is a human, a clone, or what it is. And for all, you know, look, we know how this works anyway. They could tell us flat out that they lit our houses on fire, that they burned Texas, that they're trying to kill all of us. Then the majority of society would just go, they're just trolling. They don't really mean it, because that's what they've been programmed to think, and they think everything's a joke at this point. So Biden can literally stand there and say, yeah, the roofs that survive are the ones that weren't hit with the microwave frequencies because we wanted to protect those specific people, and we told them to put make their roofs with this material and this color etc. And people wouldn't blink, right? So I found it very interesting that this stuff's out there. Obviously, this is the type of stuff I'd like to be able to post over on YouTube, but obviously I'm struggling right now to really get content up, but I'm glad everybody is over here on the website. There are companies that are engineering material made out of that specific meta material. So I guess the material's underneath. So if you have like a metal roof, you could have metal material underneath it. As you can see some of the articles on the screen. This is from 2017, newly engineered material that can cool roof structures and zero energy consumption. So it's interesting. It's an interesting thing to look at. When you hear these guys talk like that, you know, and then you're like, you know, I mean, I get it with Biden, like everything he says doesn't make sense. But that sounded to me like it made perfect sense as to what he was saying. And anybody that looked at what happened in Texas, it's very clear for people with common sense to see that this was a direct energy weapon. Fires do not burn like that. They do not burn in straight lines like that. They do not burn that fast and that furious. You know, what was it, 150 football fields per second? Something like that. I think it was like 15,000 yards. And it was the size of going from Philadelphia to New York City. You know, in Texas, it looks small on a map because it's Texas. And as they say, right, everything's big in Texas. Well, they look small on a map, but Philadelphia to New York is, you know, pretty far. It's two separate sports cities. It's two separate cities, big cities. To go all the way across there, across pretty much the entire state of New Jersey is a long distance. So it's not a minor fire. And people are like, well, you know, there weren't a lot of casualties. What's the big deal? Well, there's a lot of food that was killed off. Like I said, 30% of the United States of America's livestock comes from that specific spot in the Texas Panhandle. So these are things people won't care about now, but they'll care about later. Kind of like the people who have the magic potion in their bodies. They aren't caring right this second, but they probably will when all of a sudden they get cancer at the age of 35. But then again, they'll just think it's something else, not the poison that they already put in their bodies. I thank everybody for being here on the website. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.